Hi, and welcome to the Anti-Waffle podcast of Emma Pixie.
Woohoo!
And together we'll try to talk about research about any gobbledygook. Each episode we'll be talking to a researcher who will discuss the work they're doing, looking at why this research is important and asking how did they get into this field. We hope that it will be informative and interesting and bring a bit of the academic world into the real world. Today we have Professor Catherine Tuleu, who's a professor in paediatric pharmaceutics at UCL School of Pharmacy. Hi, Catherine. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. Thank you so much for talking to us today. So do you want to start by telling us about your research?
Yes, sure. So I'm a pharmacist by training, and I joined the School of Pharmacy because they were starting to bring people together to work around medicines for children. And my specialty is making the medicines. It's called pharmaceutics. So I can make a tablet, I can make an eye drop, I can make an injection. And the realization then was that what was available for children was inappropriate because it was not coming in the right format. So that's why my research is around making better formulations for children. So making better drug products for children.
So can I just confirm, so when you say making them, so what you're saying is, so like someone else will design the actual medicine and then you think of the best way to apply it? No.
We work with, for example, the clinical team or the pharmacologist who have the drug itself. So they know it's gonna, they know a dose and they know where it's going to act. Now we need to make a product that's going to deliver that. It's called drug delivery formulation. Yeah. So because if it was only the drug itself, you wouldn't be, it's like a pinch of salt. So you wouldn't be able to take it. So we need to make it in a finished product and optimize where it goes in the body, how quick or not so quick it's delivered. And a lot for what I'm doing is all those products, if you think about it, they're drug. These drugs are toxic. All depends on the dose. And that's why we need clinical trials to define that. And most of them, because nature is well done, they taste really bad. So although as an adult, you are going to overcome that and thinking, yeah, I know it's horrible, but that's good for me and I'm going to take it. In the best case scenario, it's not even true 100% in adults, but a baby is not going to think like that. Might try to take it once, but not twice. So there is a lot of things to do for children around making the medicines okay. And I prefer to say okay than nice, because we don't want to sell what we are doing, but it needs to be okay. And a big motivator for me is that's going to be their first encounter with any treatment. So we need them to have a good experience because it's going to have influence on later life. Their health as the first outcome, but as well, if later they have to take other medicines, I'm a strong believer that if they've got a better experience early on, they're going to be maybe more compliant patients later on.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So do you, because I thought with children, so what age range do you work from? Do you work from
preterm babies? Preterm babies. Because there was, and again, my job really gained some momentum because in 2007, there was an implementation of a European regulation that kind of makes big pharma company license medicines for children. And that's quite important because it means doing proper clinical trials that are adapted, obviously, to the patient population, and that's going to deliver a product that is going to be easy to use, ready to use, or should be easy to use, ready to use. We have still a lot of old products that are used in children, babies, on the shelves that have not been designed for them, which means that the doctor have worked out that, okay, it works like that in adults, so it should work like that in babies. But my baby is 10 times less heavy, or my child is 10 times less heavy than the adult, so I'm going to divide the dose by 10. But it doesn't necessarily work like that, because as a young child, you evolve not only in size, which means the dose, but as well how you're going to handle the drug internally. So that's very important that those new products go through a thorough process of clinical trials. Again, the science and the application of the science has evolved a lot to, of course, minimize the burden on the families, the patients, that needs to do those trials. So there is a lot of side research on how to minimize the number of patients you need, how to minimize the blood test you need to take, how to minimize the number of time the parents will have to bring their kids to the hospital or the clinical trial unit. So that goes, that was part of this package of this regulation, really improving availability of adequately licensed medicines for children. But as well, there was a big push on, come on, companies, you need to do the right thing. You need to make medicines that actually the patient can take. And we are talking the big challenge remains in the fact that you start with a newborn, and then it evolves to teenagers, and they've got different issues, different abilities, different willingness to take their medicines. So all that needs to be included in the design of a good product, or what would be a good product, or what would be the best product for them. And whatever route of administration, if it's an eye drop, if it's an injection, if it's something to take, by mouth, and yeah.
And can you talk us how you work your way through that process? And so there's a new medicine. How would you start that process?
We even work with old medicine. There is a lot of work on reformulation, because, as I say, lots of old medicines are still not in the right format. For example, you look at some medicines, they contain alcohol. You don't really want to expose your newborn, for example, that it's the example as well is an anti-epileptic, which is an elixir, which is part of the British pharmacopoeia, so has been, on the books for years, and it contains alcohol, and it's for epileptic seizures, to treat epileptic seizures. So all that now is scrutinized. So you're going to think of the important bit is obviously working closely with the clinical team and understanding what's your target. So the age group, the dose you need to deliver, and the route of administration, right? And then, of course, the age range is very important, because, as I explained just before, those patients don't have the same ability to swallow a tablet or not. Or so you're going to have to integrate that. And then we go into our toolbox of what can we do? I can do a tablet if they can swallow. Maybe I can do a dispersible tablet that goes in water and disperse, or maybe I can do an oral dispersible tablets that can go in the mouth. Or if I'm a bit more advanced, there is those thin films as well that disappear in the mouth, which are quite nice because you can't really spit it out. It's kind of, so we've got various technologies, it's called, out there, and you're going to think on, which one could be appropriate, but as well, you need to look at the chemistry of the compound itself. Does it go easily in water? Is it stable in water, or do we need to keep it dry as much as we can? So all that is brought together on how we can make the best product. And one thing for me, and one thing that is actually new, because for adults, the first intent when companies can, and they're going to develop a tablet and a capsule, and you can easily mask the taste, right? You put a little film around, you're supposed to swallow it. You're not supposed to crush it, and you're supposed to swallow it. So you shouldn't really taste it. Sometimes there is still a bit of taste remaining, but that's another issue. But for kids, they can't do that. So you're going to have something that inherently is going to exposed a bit more the taste buds. So they're going to have a more full-on experience on the bad taste of the medicine. So we need to look at those technologies that could overcome that. Yeah. Because the traditional way is to just add sugar. Yeah, to try to fool the patient. You make it very sweet so they kind of forget that it's bitter, because it acts on two different parts of the taste buds. But when your drug itself is really bitter, not only it's very sweet, but it's very bitter. So it's and you had a lot of flavor to try as well to fool the brain on, it's sweet and pink. It could be strawberry, it could be berries, but it's difficult. So we've got other technologies, but they're highly dependent as well on the end products you want to make. So, and that's the job of the formulator, to try to bring that all together.
Oh, that's fascinating. So with the like with the alcohol, surely the levels are so low. Would they be, or are they so low? Maybe they're not as low as I'm thinking that they would be.
Very good question. They are not at all. I mean, there is an example of it's been improved again. All that has been heavily scrutinized and criticized, and now there is definitely a trend to make sure that anything else that you put in the medicine is safe for the patient. And we are talking really the very younger age group, because their blood-brain barrier, which protects their brain to whatever we're taking, is not as sealed as when you're older. All that is but no, some medicine contains more alcohol than there would be in gin, over 40%. The specific example I've got is for an HIV drug, so AIDS, for AIDS, and it has improved. It's an oldish product that the challenges of the drug itself were really, really high. So that was the only way they could get something that didn't come as a chunky big tablet that could be given to people who couldn't swallow, like babies. And liquids as well means that you can adapt the dose more. So when it's necessary, you have to dose by the weight of the patient. And of course, for lots of products, you can't easily do that. And you don't really want to have too many products on the shelf with different strengths, because then you increase the risk of errors. Yeah, it's easy then, if you've got to choose in between 10, it's very easy to. So that's another, challenge to make pediatric medicines. And as well, if you think about it, you might have quite a lot of adults with a specific cardiac condition, but then when you look into the various pediatric subsets, so the way we can group our different pediatric age that kind of makes sense, there is not so many. You've got the up to 1 month old, then 1 month to 2 years of age, then 2 to 12. But for us, we cut at 6, because 6, there is a lot of cognitive changes in children. And so you've got very little patient with very specific needs. So it becomes a real challenge, because you can't, as much as company would like to, it's not viable to develop 5 different, prescription products.
Wow, that's so, from 1 month to 2, that's very, the babies change so much in that period.
Exactly. So that there is it's the way that a classification has been made to look at pediatric subsets, in the sense that their biology was common enough to look at them as a group. So you've got 0 to 1 month old, and then there is a group 1 month old to 2 years of age, and then above 2. But up to, and of course it's a classification, so you will always have outliers, and everybody's unique and mature at their own rates, and their but that's a classification that is used for clinical trial, for example.
Do you have to test them on the children? How do you go about doing those clinical trials?
How do you okay, so I'm more on the academic side, but within company, they would, I guess, tailored their formulation development to the children population in question. And then obviously, yes, after you go through the same process as in adults. However, of course, there is extreme and stringent ethical and safety review of what you're doing. So you've got the way you look at it is very, well, is rather different than in adults, because you've got other challenges as well with children. But yes, the idea was that it is better to do those clinical trials with children rather than not do them and put them at risk with having something that we don't know enough about. And there is a whole science around doing better clinical trials with children. You know, how can we use less, as I was saying at the beginning, using less patients, making those trials more adapted to families. So, and the child, if it's a trial that is a long-term trial at home, making sure that the child doesn't lose too much days of school. You know, all that has been integrated, and in the way as well as the samples are taken to measure the efficacy of the intervention in the trial.
So with the, this is really interesting. Like all the time you're talking, loads of questions keep popping in my head. So with the clinical trials, then, do you find, is it hard finding children to take part where parents would agree? I'm a mother. She's 22 now, but as a baby, I can't imagine saying, "Oh yes, please let my child be involved in a clinical trial."
I mean, that's a very good, that's a very fair question, and I guess it depends on many things. You know, if you've got a baby, if you're a parent of a baby with what you know is going to be a long life condition, and there is the potential that a new product might be more efficient than the standard of care, if there is a standard of care, you know, and of course you would be given exactly, you know, the same information and opportunities to review this information as an adult. But of course, it's the parents, you know, until the child can do it themselves, it's the parents who need to consent on behalf of the child. So it's not an easy situation, but I think it really depends, you know, how serious is the condition, what other things are available. You know, lots of rare diseases are diagnosed in children. There is nothing there. So, you know, maybe you would look at different. However, if it's a condition that indeed has a reasonably, you know, efficient treatment, you might think you might think differently. But this is as well something that the authorities are looking at. They don't want Me Too's. They don't want people, you know, if there is already, or try to rationalize, if there is already a therapeutic area where there is a lot of, you know, good treatment, why doing more clinical trial unless there is a very good clinical benefit or benefit altogether? Yeah. So that it's not in isolation like that. Do you see what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
there is a lot of key players involved, and it's, you know, as you can imagine, the ethical hurdle to allow a clinical trial. I mean, especially, you know, there is some trials in preterm babies, but I mean, they're the less catered for. There is, you know, because traditionally they were not, you know, in any clinical trial, you know, and you just have to make do, you know, with, you know, we know it works in adults, should work the same, but they are the more vulnerable, the more fragile babies, you know, with possibly the biggest risks in terms of, consequences. And so that's, I think, very important that if we can do good clinical research and improve the outcome, that's, but again, that's there's a bit of an ethical dilemma there, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like a minefield.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, I'm on the technical side, really. I've worked long enough with lots of clinicians to appreciate all that, and but we all do our bits. You see, and I think already having completely, changed the mindset of, no, we can't just crush a tablet. That's unfair on everybody, because you don't know the dose you're giving. For the parents, it can be a heavy burden. You've got some treatments that have to be given many times a day. How do you do if the kids can go to school and need to have it midday? I mean, it needs to be a product fit for purpose, and all that needs to be integrated. And there is a lot of much more patient involvement than there was before. And it's a very, and in clinical trial design as well, patient and families are involved to inform, is it going to work? Is it a trial that, is going to be, acceptable for patients that are, so there is a lot of key players involved, and it works.
It just hit me as you said about crushing the tablets. And so then if the actual medicine could be just like the size of a grain of salt, and you're crushing the tablets, then every crumb counts. Every bit of dust counts.
And you're a parent at home with other siblings running around. Some compounds are not good to be, manipulated like that in the open. That's why there is pharmacies. That's why, there are, so there is a lot of things to consider, to consider, and it's already, I feel it's already enough of a burden, to have to, I mean, chronic condition, but there is some similarities when you've got to deal with an infection. So you might only have to give it for 7 days, but in a way, it can be even, the challenges are different, because your patient is naive, and probably is acceptability level are even lower, because he's not used to take any medicine. So suddenly he's got this horrible thing to take, and, and it makes him feel, rough after, and it leaves a bad taste in the mouth, and it's difficult to take. And there is, so it starts there, I guess. That's the first point of contact with the treatment, and I think it's very important not only to optimize the delivery of the drug and the treatment, but just for the patient's well-being, and
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's such an important part, because you're already a parent, aren't you? You're already worried your child's something wrong with your child. You've got to take something, and it's that if it's going to be an issue to get them
exactly,
to take it, and they don't understand, and all they need to do is take the 7 days and they'll be better, but they won't. It is such a problem, such a worry. So it's if you can make it that bit easier that they actually take it and then they're cured, then it's incredible.
It's been pushed as well, because the needs of a 70 kilo adult or whatever, is very different, and so has been integrated in the design of those products. There is an extra element that I think has been neglected for adults, maybe less for elderly patients, but for adults, is the device. Because on top of having all that, for kids, very often you have to use a spoon or a syringe or a cup. Can I use my spoon at home instead of this one? I've lost it. Or, I've got 2 products with 2 different syringes. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of, and the accuracy, sometimes you've got to adapt the dose, and for whatever reason, it's emotional, it's, so even simplifying and making that part of the delivery easier is important, and is considered. I mean, this is definitely something that has to be discussed now, when companies are going to the regulators, they're challenged, and okay, you're saying to me that you're going to do this product. what excipient? Excipient is everything else you put in the medicine to make it as a medicine. You know, what is in there? Why? You know, what level have you been using? Because sometimes there won't be any other options than to add maybe a little bit of alcohol. Are you sure you've optimized the low level of alcohol you're using? And, you know, are you sure you can't use any? So lots of questions are asked like that. And as well, you know, the delivery. Are you sure that the patient can handle it? Is it easy enough? How are they going to clean it? Is the print on the syringe, is it going to fade if they put it in the dishwasher? You know, I mean, there is all sorts of course, it's on, you know, product basis, but there is all sorts of considerations there, and I think that they make sense. And and often it starts as well just by, when you get the box, get the product out of the box, you've got a leaflet, you know, you've got like pages and pages and pages of really small prints of, and I think there is a big effort to try to make things a bit more visual, simple, when it comes to medicines for children. That's at least something that is understood and yeah.
Yeah, understood in that moment of stress when you're just wanting to cure something. Yeah, exactly.
But we've seen lots of really nice, you know, like new pediatric products for maybe, you know, diseases that we see less here, malaria and all that, and they come with really nice pictograms. So just pictures, you know, with to show the time of the day there is a moon or a sun, and you know, and example pictures of how to administer it, or and I think some products are starting to come out now where you've got, for example, a barcode and not the barcode, what's it called?
QR code.
Yes. And you can just, you know, flash that with your phone and then have access to maybe a little video, or, and that can be as simple as that. Just to make, you know, parents and families' life around treatment easier.
You were saying earlier about the different types, that there's a more modern way where the tablet or the medicine just dissolves. Because I remember years ago, Listerine brought out the mouthwash people, and it was just like a piece of almost paper or plasticky thing that you could just put on your tongue. So
that's exactly that. That's exactly that. But again, it has, you know, when it's feasible, it exists, but somehow there is some medicines that would be more appropriate or not, because you can't put a lot in there. So you're going to be limited by, you know, some products you will have to give, let's say, you know, an antibiotic, 250 milligram. That might be too much. However, some other drugs like antihistaminic, or, you know, you have to give 2 milligram, 5 milligram, then that could be applicable. Yeah. So you've got that element, and the drug itself, you know, can be, but as well, there is an element of cost, obviously, because when you go towards products that are a bit more technologically advanced, you've got the cost increase very quickly, and you need to recoup, you know, your investment, because if not, it's not. Do you see what I mean? You know, you would see these kind of products, and again, I was in America recently, and it's always like an expedition for me to go and see the over-the-counter products for children. I mean, because it's a market, because there is competitiveness, they're coming up with, I mean, all sorts of tricks. People pay for it, so that pays back for the technology you put in. When it's a prescription product that will have to be given on the NHS, you know, so all that needs to be, you know, the market size, you know, it's sadly a reality, but we've got a lot of technologies available, but there is an element of cost involved, I guess. And for example, those films, they're great. For pharmaceutical product, what you're talking was just like, you know, buccal hygiene, or, but for pharmaceutical products, the packaging becomes very important. And that probably would cost like way much more than the product itself. Yeah. So you know, all that will have to be weighted all together. And but definitely we've got all sorts of very interesting technologies out there.
It's fascinating, and this is why I like doing this podcast, because you go and find out all this amazing work that's going on, and the amount of incredible hard work that's going into these areas that I just don't think people consider or realise that what it takes to think about how to get a child to take that medicine and how important it is. Yeah, it's amazing work.
To talk about the acceptability, the fact that the excipient is important, there is a lot of debate around colors, because colorants, people are starting to say, oh, in food it's not good, so why would we put some in pharmaceuticals then? I mean, some colorants are better than others, but there is a lot of scrutiny around as well. Do you really need a colorant in your kids' medicines? And so all that has been deconstructed, and there is a lot of research going on to try to make safer colorants or no colorants. And what do the kids have never been asked before? It's kind of, so, what if I give you a white tablet versus a colored tablet, that, or for what, or a liquid, so
if
there
they
is
didn't have colors in the tablets, then the matrix wouldn't work.
No, it would.
No, I was
yeah,
about
you
the film.
you could say that, but I mean, we've got, I haven't touched upon, but there is like 3D printing now where you can print dinosaur shapes and blah blah. So we are not there yet especially for prescription medicines, but so yeah, I mean, if you feel the administration is important, the content, the acceptability, the how it's integrated with other part of development, if you feel that, that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And also with the it's like you were saying before, with it's getting that balance between making it sweet so that the kids will take it, but then also not too sweet so they don't think it's sweet.
Exactly.
And then just
there's been some stories around Calpol where people like it so much you really have to lock it into your medicine cabinet somewhere where the kids can't reach, because I think I've got a colleague from Pfizer who's behind it, and she was saying, I'm ashamed to say that, my daughter did it. Her daughter went into the cabinet and was like, oh yeah, I like this one. And so that's
I like the taste of it.
and similarly, people are going on and on about, we should make, chewables, for example, for kids. Yeah, that's great. It's true. It's something that they can all relate to, like the Haribo type of thing. And but you have to be a bit careful as well, because that's easily eaten. And so for vitamins, sure, because before you overdose on vitamin, you have to take a lot of, you would have, diarrhea due to probably the sugar in the, rather than, do you see what I mean? But you have to be a bit careful, because if you put in there something that is a bit more potent, yeah, maybe eating 3 or 4 would be a problem.
Well, for vitamins, the siblings, it's one thing to say, oh no, this is a spoonful of medicine because they're sick, and then then others say, no, this is a sweet for them. No, you can't have a sweet, and it's then you've got all those arguments. And
exactly, so there is a big, I think the regulator are quite yeah, that's you have to be quite black and white with that, because yes, it's tempting to go that way, but if you make it too easy, too attractive, we're still talking about medicines.
Yeah, too sweet-like is a dangerous area, isn't it? Yes. But could you tell us, how did you get into this area of research?
As I say, I think the School of Pharmacy was very visionary, and they knew that there was this change in the regulation coming, and they wanted to bring together various experts around kids' medicines. And as well, if you think about it, lots of parents, you go to your GP or you go to your pharmacist to ask for minor ailments. There is lots of things going on. The pharmacist has to play a role a lot in that interaction. So I think they thought, okay, if we develop expertise around pediatric medicines research, we want to be able to provide that. So someone who knows about formulation and how we can make best formulation for children. There was someone that was was very specialist in medicine use. So all the and someone who would be able to do more the biological stuff, how do we measure what goes in the blood, the effect. So they brought together an expert, and then since then we've been really growing a lot. And for me, what was really an eye-opener is almost one of the first projects I worked on, where we've always been working a lot with Great Ormond Street. It's one of the, it's the ICH is a UCL institute, and they're across the square. We're just separated by a bit of green, and we were called in because at the time they were giving Viagra to children. Yes, exactly. And that was, as a pharmacist, that was kind of my first reaction on, because Viagra contains sildenafil citrate, that's the name of the drug inside. And actually, sildenafil citrate, was developed for pulmonary hypertension. But then they noticed that it's all depending on the dose and all that, but the side effect was an erectile side effect. Yeah. It then was sidetracked to that market and has been developed as the big blue pill. But there is still lots of children with pulmonary hypertension that needs to be treated with sildenafil citrate. And the big coated pill is no good for them, Yeah. So at the hospital, they were crushing it, but it was a bit of a nightmare because of the coating of the tablets and blah, blah, blah. So they came to us and said, well, how can you help us to develop a better way of making a liquid out of it? So that started then. So, which was, and then I uncovered the whole field of, you go to big pediatric hospitals and there is still lots of that going on because they don't have the right products. And as a pharmacist, like, but hang on a minute, I've been taught that you have to go through a licensing system, and that's why it's been tested for efficacy, safety, and the quality of the product. So we can't just take a quality product and crush it and mix it with Ribena and mix it with, and that's how we, it all started with lots of projects like that. But this one was, of course, an interesting one because it's Viagra. So just, and that shows as well lots of drugs as well are repurposed now. So they find another therapeutic area where it could be useful. But of course, especially for children, it's never in the right format. So there is a lot of manipulation like that going on. So there is a lot of need for reformulation in an appropriate format for children. So that was an interesting one, this one.
So how did you were a pharmacist before you went into this research, or how did you choose?
No. I was, but it's interesting because it feels that everything has always drawn me to pediatric medicines. But so I did my pharmacy degree in France and my PhD in France. And I originally came in UK for a postdoctoral placement of 1 year. I had a grant from the British Council then to come and I remember saying to my PhD supervisor, I'm just going to go for 1 year and I'll come back. And he said, no, I want you to be finished before you go because you will never come back. And that was in 99. So clearly he was right. But anyway, so this, my PhD supervisor has always been a very influential mentor for me. And very early on, I always liked pharmaceutics, which is the science of making medicines, the products themselves, the dosage forms. And from early on, I've done lots of placements in manufacturing units, etc. And then I did with that professor my fifth year placement at a big pediatric hospital in Paris. And that was already then working into making a new formulation for those children. So, and then, so that was, I guess, the start. And the other start, I guess, that has probably be influential is one of my sister died when she was 2 of cancer. And I've never known her. I was born after, but she's always been a part of, it's not sad memories around it, but it has always been, and I think now with the development of new medicines for children, she probably would be alive but there was no, the lack of research then, the lack of research into those products that could, provide a positive outcome was not there then. And it's always been, at the back of my mind, I guess, that.
To follow this field, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's interesting as well, because my father was a surgeon, and we've been at the School of No Medicine. So I remember as a kid, if we had a headache or whatever, go and have a good night of sleep and you will be okay tomorrow.
Oh, interesting.
That was very much either you fix it, you mend it, or, you sleep it off. And maybe we were lucky that, didn't have any big needs, and were quite healthy. And so, yeah.
So he didn't want to put himself out of a job. So I'll get you open or go to bed. I like that.
And brilliant. And we always ask at the end of our podcast if you could sum up why your research is so important for the public, please.
I think for me, it's, I've been working in that field for, almost 20 years now. And I really realize, as it is for many things for children, it's a good start in life. And if already you're unlucky enough to have a disease, even if it's short term, but obviously longer term, I want to help them to make that experience as, I can't say pleasurable, but as easy as possible. And I think, it's not the whole story. There is lots of things, linked to that, but it's my little contribution to make their patient journey a bit more palatable, no pun intended, and we can do better. And so driving that agenda for me is important. I'm doing my bit at my small, academic scale. I'm part of, bigger groups as well that all do their own bits. And I think we've already come a long way since the European regulation. And I feel very enthused still, on where it's leading and where we're going.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because and if you're helping the patients, then you're helping the parents as well. So yeah, so it's a lot of good work.
The NHS, because healthier, younger people, just, it's this all, so that's why I think it's very important to get the right start. As it is for food, as it is for lots of things, and, but I feel it's very important.
Yeah, definitely. On behalf of my children, they would like to say thank you for making it better. Thank you. Oh, that's incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, it's so interesting. So interesting.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time, and thank you to everybody for listening. We'll put up all our links on our Twitter account, which is at Anti-Waffle Pod, and please do get in touch, as we'd love to hear from you. Bye.
Bye.